Hey everybody, Kevin here, WQ9F, here for another video on WQ9F ham radio, where we talk about ham radio gear, news, reviews, and most importantly, getting on the air. So recently I got an order from Ham Radio Outlet, and we had a couple things in that order, if you saw the last video. One was a MFJ SWR Wattmeter, and the other was a Yaesu FT65 dual band HT. For today's video, we're going to be taking a little bit closer look at this item right here. This is the MFJ-849 digital SWR and Wattmeter. Now, before this, I had a diamond SWR Wattmeter. Worked great. Used it for a number of years. I think that was one of the very first ham radio items I ever purchased after I started getting into radios. So that diamond SWR Wattmeter, I actually purchased it as for CB radio. My dad's a truck driver, and so I kind of got my start getting into radio through CB. And a bunch of my friends in high school, we talked on the CB radio. We had CB radios in our cars, and we had base stations. And so that was actually one of the very first things I remember buying, was that diamond SWR and Wattmeter to use on 11 meters. But I used it for a number of years. I recently sold that at a ham fest this year, and I thought it was about time to pick up a replacement for it. So we're actually going to take a look at this item right here, and we're going to see how it works. I like that it's digital. The cross needles, they worked great. It was a real quick indicator of if one needle's down low and the other needle's up high, your SWR is low. But if you were trying to measure your SWR with the cross needles, you kind of had to really sometimes take a look at where they crossed at to read that meter. Otherwise, this meter also, which the other one that I had didn't, covers VHF and UHF. I'm pretty excited that this meter does HF as well as VHF and UHF, and that's because we have a radio coming. We have a radio coming soon that is a little bit of kind of a shack-in-the-box type of radio. So it will cover 70 centimeter, 2 meter, 6 meter, as well as the HF bands all the way up to 160. But it's a used radio, so having a good SWR and Wattmeter will be a nice way for us to be able to test that radio out to make sure that we're getting appropriate power out and see if there's any problems with it. Kind of one of the dangers of buying a used radio online. Well, if you haven't done so, make sure you hit the like button on the video. If you have any comments or suggestions, or maybe you have some experience with this SWR and Wattmeter, let me know in the comments down below. If you have another suggestion for an SWR Wattmeter, something you like better, let me know as well. So we passed 150 subscribers recently, which I'm really excited about. And I want to thank all of you that have subscribed so far. If you haven't subscribed yet, consider hitting that subscribe button so you can be notified when I post new videos. Also, when we hit 250 subscribers, I've got a little giveaway that I'm planning for the people that have subscribed to my channel. That giveaway might also include some other things that I have recently picked up. So let's go ahead, take a look at what's in the box, take a look at the operation to see how this thing works, and then we're actually going to take a look inside. As with most things I buy that are MFJ, I like to open them up just to kind of see, because I know MFJ doesn't always have the best reputation when it comes to quality. So we're going to take a look inside of this as well. All right, so here we have our box. Box has got some pretty good weight to it. Got pictures of it all along the sides, and we do have our feature set here. So it says a large 3.5-inch display, forward reflected power, VSWR ratio in one button. It does cover 1.6 to 60 megahertz, and then it has a separate range for 125 to 525. So this will do HF to 6 meters. Then we'll be able to cover 2 meter, the 220 band, as well as 440. The calibration point says it's at 100 megahertz. Power range is 0 to 200 watts, and it says the insertion loss is less than 1 dB. So, got our box here. Let's go ahead and open this up and see what we have. So here we have our operation manual. which really just has all the specifications on it again. Front panel, rear panel, you know, pretty basic. This is all the stuff that you can really just take a look at when you open it up and actually look at the device. And then here we have a couple more things. So this actually fits in the box really tight. Just comes in this cardboard sleeve, and then it's wrapped up here in this, just plastic wrap. Taped up. Go ahead and cut this tape here. There we go. So here we have our SWR wattmeter. HF VHF switch, power button, turn it on and off. It's got a screen protector on right now. Yeah, it's overall in pretty nice looking. On the back, we have 2 ports for transmitters and 2 ports for antennas. This only has hookup for 1 transmitter and 1 antenna. On this side right here, this is the transmitter and antenna hookup ports for our 1 to 60 megahertz side, and then on the other side here we have 125 to 525 megahertz. So our VHF UHF will be over here, HF will be on this side. And then we also have, comes with this tiny little, now this does need 12 volt power in order to operate, so this has this tiny little, if anything's packaged good, it's this piece right here. So we have a little power cable here for our 12 volt power to go to our meter. This is a digital meter, so it makes sense that it needs power. So we actually have our positive and negative, and it just has a little barrel connector on back. It just connects right here. I'm actually going to go put some power pole connectors on this, so that way it's like the rest of all my equipment, which is all power poles. As far as putting this in, it feels pretty good. It's got a nice snug fit. It seems I don't know. Plugging it in, it's nice, but when you unplug it, it sounds a little metallic-y. It almost looks like inside the barrel connector here, there's the 2 prongs inside of here that connect to our center conductor. I don't know, they sound a little weird. That might work itself out with time. It's already sounding a little bit better. All right, so I'm gonna go put some power pole connectors on this, and we'll take a look at, we'll power this up, and we'll take a look at it. Ta-da! Since we are still in the process of building our station, we're doing a lot of this work here on our kitchen table. So I've got my Bioenno batteries, and I'm gonna have, I'll show you the setup here in a second. So now we can go ahead and plug this in. We have our on-off button, turns on. We've got a real nice bright display. It looks really good. I'm guessing if you wanted to, you could probably change out these LEDs and maybe get a different color. We're gonna go ahead and, ooh, that's the best. But this is literally the best part about buying stuff with a screen. Gotcha. We're gonna leave it on for right now though until we get this set up in our station. So we have our HF or VHF switch. Now this, honestly, it doesn't change anything on the screen, it looks like. But it does give you an idea here of VHF, UHF. Then we have our power button. It looks like maybe it shows a firmware number when it starts up. Pretty good switch. Pretty good switch here. But yeah, looks good so far. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and turn this off. We're gonna unplug it. Oh, see, there's that noise again. It still sounds. When you're unplugging and plugging this in, sometimes it just sounds weird. I don't know. Yeah, like that. So before we hook this to the radio to check this out, I want to take these screws out, and we're gonna take the lid off, and I want to see what this looks like on the inside. All right, so we're gonna be pretty careful here. I do not want to damage this. It is brand new. Here's the thing. When you get something new, please don't be afraid to take it apart. All right. I think one of the best parts about amateur radio, and this is, I don't know if you've seen Josh Nass over at the HRCC, Ham Radio Crash Course. Him and his wife do a podcast, and on one of their recent podcasts, they were talking about, don't be afraid to let the smoke out. Don't be afraid to let the smoke out of stuff. If you're afraid of damaging or causing a problem with something, or, you know, breaking a component, you know, I don't know, it happens, you know, and as a ham radio operator, sometimes we have to be prepared for that to happen. And I'm gonna guess right now that if I were to take this apart and damage it, one, I know it'd be my own fault. Two, it would probably give me an opportunity to try and fix it myself. All right, so we have 4 screws on the side holding this together, it looks like. And then we have, this just looks like it slides off maybe. Oh, there we go. Maybe, come on. Alrighty. So inside of here, there is not much going on. Looks like we've got kind of these 2 units back here, and I don't know what's going on inside of them, but then it looks like they connect to this board right here. And so we have one for HF and one for VHF, UHF. Take a closer look here at kind of some of our solder joints. I've had, and I know I'm not alone on this, some issues with MFJ products in the past with solder joints being bad. And there's one that kind of concerns me right off the bat just a little bit, and that is here on our negative power side. It's kind of hard to see inside of there, but it's not cold, but it doesn't look like there's a ton of wire, a lot of solder, not a ton of wire getting connected to that. So we'll keep an eye on that. It looks like it'll hold just fine for now. Tons of solder here. Looks like there's a bunch of extra solder that was just melted all over the place. No cold solder joints though, it looks like. On this side, it's the same thing. Again, plenty of solder all over the place. Now, on the front of this, inside of here, there's a board inside of here. This looks like it was, this board looks like it was probably made somewhere else. This is all surface mount stuff right in here. Overall, not too bad. Looks like underneath there's the switch. There's a toroid inside of here. About 1 billion wires wrapped around it, so real tight. It's kind of hard to see inside of there. Overall, not too bad. So this looks good inside. Pretty happy with this. Yeah, I'm guessing if I wanted to, I could probably change out some LEDs inside of here if I wanted to really take this apart, to instead of making this amber, make a different color, but it looks good. So let's put this back together. That just clips on, and then we have our 4 screws. Again, since this is brand new, I'm not really going to town tightening this stuff up super tight. I don't want to damage anything just yet, since I just took it out of the box. So we're going to snug these down. But again, this this meter is really just it's gonna sit at my station, sit on my desk, and be kind of lined up in with everything else. Alright, well, so far so good. Alright, so the next step is going to be hooking this up to, hooking it up to some power, hooking it up to a radio. We're actually going to feed it into the radio into a dummy load, and seeing what happens. I'm hoping with the dummy load, we're getting full power out, and we're getting a very low SWR. Hopefully. We'll see. Alright, so we're going to be trying this out on our IC7300 first. So we have a couple things here. First, we have our wattmeter. We have our radio. We have our straight key. We have my Vectronics DL300M dry dummy load that we're going to be hooking up. Along the back here, I've got my two BioNO batteries. The first one is going to be hooked up to the radio. That's the one on the left, which is the black 20 amp hour battery. The one on the right is our 15 amp hour battery, and we're going to use that to hook up to our wattmeter. And then I have a couple coax jumpers that we're going to hook up as well. Alright, so around the back side here, we are hooked into our HF side. Now on this HF side, we have our coax going from the top, which is our transmitter, to our IC7300. Then on the bottom, instead of going to an antenna, we are actually using our Vectronics DL300 dummy load. So this dummy load is good for a SWR of 1.3, so that's what we should expect. It's good from DC to 150 megahertz. So this will allow us to test on HF, 6 meters, and we're actually going to try and we'll try and put a VHF radio on here as well. So we have our wattmeter turned on. We got our radio turned on. We're actually going to switch this to CW. So once I key my straight key, you can hear turning on. I currently have my RF power turned down to 0. So let's go ahead and we'll turn this up to, say, 25. We're going to move down to the bottom of, so we're down here in the CW portion. Now if I key this up, I should be getting a low to no SWR on my radio, which is what I have. So if I key this up, no noticeable SWR on the radio. Now if I come up here to my power meter, 20 watts out, 0 reflected, SWR 1.02. Now I do have the RF power on the radio set to 25 watts, so we should be getting a little bit more out. Let's see if I can get rid of this glare. Let's turn this up now to 50 watts RF power. We're getting 52 out. Turn it up to 75 watts. It says I'm getting 78.4, 0.3, right around there. And now let's turn it up to 100%, which should be 100 watts out. 109.5. So that seems pretty good. Let's go through and we can check this on the other bands. So I primarily use this radio on 10, 15, 20, and 40. I have used it on 30, I've used it on 12, I've used it on 17, I've used it on 6 meters, but I don't have antennas for the top bands. I've never used it on 60, on 80, or on 160. So let's turn this to 160. We're currently on 1.9 megahertz. I'm still on 100% power. So yeah, this looks like this meter's working really good actually. So what's really nice, actually, if I key down, so it shows me my power output into my dummy load. I unkeyed, and this stays up there for a good 10-15 seconds afterwards, so I can, if I don't have my eye on the meter, I can still see what's happening. That's really nice. So that's 160. Here's 80 meters, 112 watts out. Alrighty, so here we have my Yaesu FTM 100D hooked up now. We have it hooked up to the battery. We are currently on high power on 2 meters, so we're at 144.44. We are also still connected into our dummy load. So I expect to see some reflected power probably on this, just because this dummy load isn't necessarily rated down to give us really great readings this far down. Now, we have switched our switch here to our VHF UHF, and that's all we had to do. Now on the back of this, all I did was switch my transmitter and my antenna to the other side. So if we remember on back here, there's 2 sides. My radio is currently set to 50 watt output, which is high power. So if we key it down, hitting 37 watts out, SWR 1.8, a little bit of reflected power. So probably not, it's not something I'm really too concerned about. Then considering this radio is a little old, it's probably it might be a little tired. And I bought it secondhand. So I've never actually put this radio on a meter, but now we can see. So if I turn the radio to low power, we're down to 3 watt output. Mid power gives us 12 watts, and then 38 watts output on high power. Now, even though this radio is not rated for UHF frequencies, I did switch the radio to UHF, so we're on 70 centimeters. I'm just going to do a quick key up. We're at 430 megahertz on high power. And we're still getting 42 watts output, 1.7 SWR. Low power, we get 1.6 watts out. Mid power, 16. Now this radio is supposed to be rated output power on high at 50 watts. Mid power is 20 watts and low power is 5 watts. So we're not getting quite those numbers, but again, I'm totally fine with that. So all in all, I'm pretty happy with this SWR and Wattmeter from MFJ. Again, this is the MFJ-849. Now the reason I went with this one is I wanted a meter that would do both HF and VHF and UHF. And I don't have an amplifier at my station, so I'm totally fine with the power output only going to 200 watts. Now if you were looking for a digital watt meter that will do more than 200 watts, say you have maybe an amplifier or something like that, MFJ does have other options available for you, but they are HF only. So they'll do 160 meters and they'll go down to 6 meters. Now you're not going to get an all-in-one like this is with HF, VHF, and UHF. So because of that, that was the reason I decided to go with this one. And overall, I'm pretty happy with it. It looks nice. It has a really big screen. The screen is bright. It's easy to read. I really like that once you key down and then you let go, it stays up on the screen what your SWR is and what your power output and stuff like that is. So it doesn't immediately disappear. That's a really nice feature. The other thing I like about this so far is it seems pretty accurate. On HF, it was giving me readings into the dummy load with the IC7300, over 100 watts with very low SWR, and that's into the dummy load. And that's kind of what I expect out of this radio because it's pretty new. They're rated at 100 watts. I would venture to say most IC7300s, and 100 watt radio, new 100 watt radios, period, if you put them on a meter and tested them, you're probably going to get a little bit of in excess of 100 watts output. So it seems accurate. On VHF, UHF, again, it seems okay. It's a 50 watt radio, and it's giving me a little bit of SWR into my dummy load, which probably accounts for some of my power loss. But that's nothing to be too concerned about. And I'm going to guess it's probably pretty accurate on VHF, UHF as well. If I had a different dummy load, we might be able to test that a little bit better. I've got another radio I might put on here outside of the video here and give it a test and see what it says. Once I get this set up into my actual station and it's more of a permanent fixture, we'll take a look at it again and maybe we'll see how it's working in 6 months or a year from now. But so far, the MFJ-849 SWR and Wattmeter, I'd give it a thumbs up. I appreciate you coming out and taking a look at the video today. If you go ahead and hit that like button, I'd really appreciate it. Leave a comment, or better yet, hit that subscribe button. Otherwise, until next time, 7-3.